If is a game historians love to play. If Franklin Roosevelt, just before his inauguration, had received the bullet that was meant for him but killed instead the man at his side, the mayor of Chicago, would there ever have been a New Deal? If Hitler had not persecuted the Jews, would he have had the bomb, won the war? If, and so on. Now, 100 years ago in England and Ireland, perfectly ordinary citizens sat around pubs and clubs and wondered, if Parnell had not met Kitty O'Shea, would Ireland be an independent republic? These two were the principal characters in one of the great scandals of the late Victorian age. Charles Stewart Parnell, some Brits called him Parnell, the Irish and the Americans called him Parnell, and so shall we. He was born in Ireland of an English family that had been there for 200 years, landed gentry. He was sent off to a school in England and on to Cambridge, where he was expelled from there for some minor misbehavior, and came back to an impoverished Ireland that was in rebellion against ruthless landlords evicting tenants by the many thousands. Now this led the Irish members of Parliament to break away from either the Conservatives or the Liberals and form their own party, the Irish Home Rule Party. They wanted Ireland to have its own independent parliament. Now, in 1875, when Parnell was in his 30th year, he was elected to Parliament and within 2 years became the unchallenged leader of the new party. And he accepted the support of everybody, Catholics, Protestants, moderates, Conservatives, all the way over in the beginning to the Fenian terrorists. And at one point, he used a retired soldier, one Captain O'Shea, who was an Irish member, as a go-between the new party and the Liberal Prime Minister, Mr. Gladstone. And sometime in 1880, Parnell met the captain's wife. Episode 1, Parnell and the Englishwoman.
Waiter, we shall begin. You may serve.
5 minutes.
My dear, admit defeat. Your lion refuses to take the bait.
This time he accepted. I have his note.
And that's all you have. My poor innocent Kate, you have yet to learn that when you invite the Irish to dine, you invite their bad manners as well.
Do I, Willie?
There are, of course, exceptions.
I agree.
Thank you, my dear.
No, not at all. I was referring to Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you.
How very clever.
Yes, and most handsomely deserved.
Oh, Anna, spare me. Your sister outguns me already. Have mercy.
Too late, sir. You're outflanked.
To accept and then not to come. He must be every bit as dreadful as people say. How many times is it now, Catherine? 3. How many? He has no breeding, none. Why don't you bother?
Ask my husband.
Ask me?
After all, Willie and Mr. Parnell, they have got qualities in common. They're fellow Irishmen.
You see, she taunts me with my misfortune. When I first entered politics, I had no notion that one would have to descend quite so far into the marketplace. Pity, but there you are. I mean to say, if I can do him a small service, and I dare say I can, then I see no reason why, quid pro quo, yes? Personally, can't stand the fellow.
No?
Too cold a fish for my liking.
Willie?
And he thinks he's the almighty. Tell the truth, I was less than enchanted at the prospect of the beggar drinking my claret. What is it?
Dear Willie, your discretion is the envy of all London.
Is it?
Mr. McCarthy is one of Mr. Parnell's admirers.
More than that. I am Parnell's man. Day and night and body and soul.
Justin, really?
Well, when I say that I can't stand
Parliamentary
the fellow,
privilege, sir. Dear lady, I am and ever will be the slave of any man who can work the miracle of making his fellow Irishmen pull together for more than 5 minutes on end.
Well, then, if you're such a firm Parnellian,
Parnellite, my dear.
perhaps you can persuade him where I cannot. I mean to sit at my table.
Even if it were within my power, I would not for the world take from you the pleasure of achieving that miracle for yourself.
How very disobliging.
Ah, dinner.
But forgive me. When the mountain does come to the most bewitching of harmonies, I shall be bitterly disappointed if I'm not invited to bear testimony to your triumph.
Mr. McCarthy, before the month is out, you shall have your invitation.
Willie, by Jove. And how do you intend to work the miracle?
Isn't there somewhere something written about Mohammed coming to the mountain?
You really think you can persuade him?
If you say it's necessary, then I must. And if we are to be poor otherwise, then it would seem to be necessary.
Be fair, Kate. Speak as though I were a bad provider.
Willie, you're the best man in the world in many respects. But for the moment, we must be dependent on Aunt Ben until she passes on to her reward.
And we come into ours.
Anna, you are wicked. Poor Aunt Ben.
How is the old dear?
Still 87, Willie. I was in the way of saying, my darling, that while you provide our bread and butter, and very nice it is too, for our cake we must depend on Aunt Ben's goodness. And it would be small repayment if she knew that we were at least trying to stand on our own feet. And by the by, it'd be good for us too.
My dear girl, I agree.
One thing to get into Westminster, Willie. Quite another thing to stay there.
I'm nobody's fool, you know. You just swing Parnell's coattails where I can catch hold of them. And leave the rest to me. I wish you good night, Anna. Catherine is coming on to Albert Mansions.
What did you say?
Family matters to discuss, so if you will excuse me.
Anna, stay where you are.
Do excuse us, Anna. Good night. Let her go in. Stay with me.
No such thing.
And I say you will. Driver!
Don't you dare. Really, this is too bad of you. I say we have an arrangement.
Your arrangement.
To which you agreed. You would live in London, I at Eltham, and I would stay with Anna when I came to town.
Don't
Now,
let the devil with your arrangement. Come back to Albert Mansions.
shouldn't I find it a trifle overcrowded?
Oh, Kate, that is unworthy.
What innocence. Willie, you're a little worse than port. Now, be my gallant captain, help me down. Come out on Sunday and take the children to Mass.
You are not a good wife.
That's of no matter as long as society thinks that I am. Such a good boy. Good night, Willie.
Good night, Willie.
Drive on, damn you.
Perhaps you should have gone with him.
Sometimes I do. When it suits me.
Mr. Gladstone, might I have a word?
I think, sir, I have not been honoured with your acquaintance.
The member for Meath, sir. We perhaps know each other by sight. You were good enough to read to the House some inflammatory passages from a speech I made in Sligo. Could I trouble you, sir?
Most certainly.
A portion of what I thought you said seemed unfamiliar. Of course, may have been the delivery. Now, let me see. Have you been to Sligo, Prime Minister?
I have not.
Scenery is much admired. I recommend it. Ah, here it is, as I thought. That passage is inaccurate. I never said it. Sir, I am obliged.
Extraordinary.
To be sure, an impudent fellow.
I don't mean his manner, sir. What else could one expect? I mean, if what you said was inaccurate,
Why did he not demand a correction?
My dear Forster, therein lies the impudence.
David, there you are. I was detained. You may blame my good manners. Out of politeness, I stayed to listen to Mr. Gladstone while he told the House that I am fomenting armed rebellion in Ireland.
I wish to God it was true.
I know you do. Have you met Timothy Healy?
How do you...
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Not at all. I'm used to being without. It was mislaid in a mill in Aslington when I was 11.
Healy is from Cork. In the manner of his kind, he has made himself indispensable.
I see.
I try to be useful. I'm well repaid.
You had no problems at the gate?
None, thanks to your passepartout. I told the attendant I was on ticket to leave from Dartmoor. He thought I was joking.
All's arranged, then, for Ennis.
Aye, I'm told there'll be 5 priests with us on platform.
Good God. Sounds ominously as if we're becoming respectable. Very well, then, David. Ennis it shall be, and I shall endeavor to walk your tightrope.
Is that what you call it?
Or a razor's edge. Come now, I think we know each other. It's a double game. Shall we pretend otherwise?
I'm saying not.
Next week at Ennis, and in the villages and on the bog roads, I shall play the card of death for Ireland and bow the knee to the sainted martyrs of our land. And there'll be those, yourself included, who will wonder if I mean a word of it. Or am I? Or may the saints look down. A peacemonger at heart. Here in Westminster, on the other hand, I denounce violence. I preach obedience to the law, and again, I am not believed. They will swear to it that I'm in league with your Fenians, that I connive at outrage and murder. Tell me, David, which version do you prefer?
That depends on whether you're a hypocrite or a play actor.
Come now. How else, except by pulling opposing strings, can a marionette be made to dance?
Do you mean our people or those in Westminster?
In the mass, is there a difference? Healy, find me the paper, will you?
Last month in Dublin, we came to an understanding. The Fenians would accept your leadership, given certain conditions.
1, I shall not discredit your ideal of independence to be won by physical force. 2, we shall demand no less than an Irish Parliament with full power over national interests. 3, the land question to be settled by tenant ownership. 4, here it is. The invaluable Timothy.
Our agreement was verbal.
Now it is written down. And by signing it, I give my word that I have promised no less. And you will be giving yours that I have promised no more.
I believe my visit was social.
But what else? Healy, fetch a glass of sherry for our guest.
Thank you, no. Drink is a habit I got out of while I was a guest of Her Majesty.
How many years?
7. And no visitors. Still, it was educational. Having but one arm, I learned to pick oakum with my teeth.
I admire your courage. I don't account myself a coward, but the thought of confinement in a prison cell fills me with terror. I don't believe I should survive it.
The devil she does. Well, now.
What is it, Healy?
Mrs. Catherine O'Shea.
Who?
Captain O'Shea's wife. She's in Palace Yard. Will you go to her?
Confound the woman. Does she never give up? Will the uncrowned king deign to spare? Damn her impudence.
A lovelorn female.
Worse, a giver of dinners. Healy, tell her I'm engaged.
She sends word that she will wait.
Am I to be spared nothing? Very well. If the lady invites brutality, then by heaven she shall have it. Forgive me. Palace Yard, you say?
Most impressive. I suppose you're one of the idolaters as well.
Well, closed me back. It was he who put them there. Whatever I am, he made me.
Did he now?
Well, try not to punish him. Ta-da.
Catherine, the mountain approaches.
Mrs. O'Shea?
As you see, Mr. Parnell, I dare to beard you in your den. My sister, Mrs. D.
How do you do?
Sir, you are unkind. You did not come to my dinner last evening, nor the one before it, and nor the one before that. Am I to know why? Am I, Mr. Parnell?
I did not come because I took my hostess to be the kind of woman she is not.
Honestly? What a bad beginning. And now that you are disabused, is she perhaps the kind of woman who could induce you to grace her table?
Tomorrow I go to Paris for my sister's wedding. Next week I'm to address a meeting at Ennis. That is in County Clare.
So I have heard. My husband is member for that county.
It had slipped my mind. So shall we say between Paris and Ennis?
London. Most appropriate. Do you like the theatre, Mr. Parnell?
I detest it.
Good. I shall engage a box for after dinner, and it shall be your punishment. Goodbye, Mr. Parnell. Oh.
Allow me.
Catherine, I'm shocked. You flirted with him.
Nothing of the sort. I was the one who was flirted with. I retaliated.
The young lady told me that her parents would not hear of her living in Ireland. Any more than I was prepared to live in America. For her own part, she gave me to understand that since I was a Protestant landlord, and I lacked a title, I was therefore a gentleman only by hearsay.
And were you heartbroken?
Inconsolable.
And you never saw her again?
When I was in Boston this year, she attended one of my public meetings. My Miss Woods is now the wife of a prominent lawyer.
What did you say her name was?
And has grown quite fat with contentment.
Did you call her Miss Woods?
You cannot know her.
Wood was my maiden name. In the singular, that is.
Singular in more than one sense. Extraordinary.
Isn't it?
I find it so amusing. May I know why?
No, it's too bad of me, and yet...
Whatever it is quite over my head.
Oh, it's unforgivable. But Mr. Parnell, it occurred to me that you're not yet out of the woods.
Now, what are you to do with a tenant who bids for a farm from which his neighbor has been evicted?
Shoot that bastard!
I think I heard somebody say, shoot him.
Blow his head off!
But I wish to point out to you a much better way. A more Christian and more charitable way, which will give the lost sinner an opportunity to repent. When a man takes a farm from which another has been evicted, you must show him on the roadside when you meet him You must show him in the streets of the town. You must show him at the shop counter. You must show him in the fair and at the marketplace. And even in the house of worship. By leaving him severely alone. By putting him into a sort of moral Coventry. By isolating him from the rest of his kind as if he were a leper of old. You must show him your detestation of the crime he has committed. A man may survive a bullet or the stab of a knife. He will not, I pledge my word, be so lost to shame that he and his will endure a world of silence, solitude, and contempt. Send a telegraph to O'Brien and tell him so.
I can't decide whether it smells of printer's ink or of cordite.
It's better than I'd hoped for.
How far, sir, do you think he should go?
As editor, as far as he pleases. Short of getting himself hanged.
Or us?
I think we may rest assured that Dublin Castle will account themselves our most avid readers.
Mr. Parnell?
Mrs. O'Shea.
Oh, I see that I'm intruding. Perhaps another time will be...
There is no intrusion. But as you can see, I am less than presentable. My colleagues, Mr. Dillon, Mr. O'Connor, Mr. Healy. Mrs. O'Shea's husband is, our Captain O'Shea.
Ah, indeed.
Healy, a chair for Mrs. O'Shea.
Oh, no, please. I was in Fitzroy Square visiting my sister, and on an impulse,
I am delighted to see you. If you would permit me, just one moment, please.
Perhaps we should...
I should have paused to think.
Not at all, ma'am. You can't be well acquainted with the chief. Oh, you would know he doesn't stand on ceremony. Except when it suits him.
We were feasting our eyes on this. A red letter day for us, #1, volume 1.
Not that we'll ever see a volume 2.
United Ireland. A new newspaper?
Oh, a newspaper, ma'am. The name says it all. What we want and what we mean to have.
Is Ireland not united then?
Indeed it is. And it forever will be. From the dawn of time and down the ages. The Irish have always been firmly united in their disunity. Sir, I was...
Not again within my hearing, cheapen what we hold most dear by making a vulgar joke of it. Do you understand?
Sir,
With respect, sir.
Dillon, I was not addressing you! Say what you have to say, but say it as truth, or as your opinion, or even as a damned lie, but not as a buffoon. While I am leader of the party, its members will have self-respect. Do you mind me?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Parnell, I really think I should leave.
If you insist. Allow me to show you to your carriage.
No, ma'am.
Wait, please. May I sit in?
You're extremely bad-tempered.
Self-discipline is not one of the Irish characteristics it requires to be instilled.
You instill it very well.
Thank you. Am I to know why I've been honored so unexpectedly?
I told you I gave way to an impulse. It was foolishness.
Was it?
Last evening, I entertained a colleague of my husband's and yours at dinner, the O'Gorman man.
The old rogue.
At dinner, he told us and smiled as he did so that you have returned from Ireland in worse health than when you went there. He went on so far as to say even more gleefully that you are unlikely to last out the session.
Seeing that he himself is 80, I could return the compliment.
You look wretched. I think I agree with him.
Well then.
I want you to come and stay at Elton.
Why, dear lady.
I know that you neglect yourself. London isn't good for Irishmen. They die of it. At Eltham, at least you'll have proper meals and you'll be looked after. The air is clear and you will sleep. I mean, dear heavens, just look at you.
You take my breath away. And for how long am I to be, what shall I call myself? Your patient.
Until you are well again. A dead man could not be of much help to my husband. Willie has mining interests in Spain, but the poor dear has no head for business, and, well, I think the politics are really his last hope, don't you?
I see.
I wonder if you do.
In return for your hospitality,
Oh, hush.
you propose a bargain, then?
Mr. Parnell. I may not be a woman of the world, but I do know that if I were thought to invite you to my home for my gain and my husband's, all society would applaud. They would smile and be wise and say, yes, that's how affairs are managed. What does my husband call it? The marketplace. But if you were to come to Eltham only as my friend, the impropriety of it would rock London.
Mrs. O'Shea, I think I may have to revise an opinion.
Of me?
I met you for the first time on the same day I first met Mr. Gladstone. I made the mistake then of thinking my meeting with him was the more momentous.
Then you will come to Eltham.
If it were only possible.
I've written out the address. Warnish Lodge, can you read it?
When my affairs are less pressing, I would be.
Your affairs will always be pressing. I shall expect you 3 o'clock. And that's where my Aunt Ben lives, Mrs. Benjamin Wood. You won't meet her today. Each Wednesday, the author Mr. George Meredith comes to read to her. She pays him £300 a year, providing he doesn't utter a word from his own books.
Indeed. If he ever tires of his work, pray let me know. Good shot.
You're not wealthy, then?
My opponents say that I have a down on landlordism because I'm the least successful of my breed. And so I am. My tenants never pay rent. Instead, they make up sentimental songs about me.
Was it they who called you the uncrowned King of Ireland?
No. For that, I may thank young Timothy Healy. But I do deplore hero worship. Not out of modesty, but because it's like a love affair. It invariably ends badly.
Oh, I don't agree.
You mean about hero
Affairs
worship?
of the heart. Your Miss Woods has made a cynic of you. And that bell is to say that Willie's arrived from town. Shall we go in? He's agreed to stay the night.
Your husband is staying the night.
Yes, he lives in town. I live here with the children. We have an arrangement. Of course, we keep up appearances. Aunt Ben would frown on any irregularity.
So you spare her feelings?
Oh, yes, I'm afraid we must. She pays the piper. Ah, here's Willie now.
He angrily declared that Miss Holcombe had allowed herself to be duped by Anne Catherine. He referred her to Count Fosco's letter and to what she had herself told him of the personal...
And what I suggest, most respectfully, is that I should be the one to take the temperature of the water. Gladstone is too much the tin god to deal with this directly, so what I think you stand in need of
is a go-between.
You have it. A man who is to be trusted, discreet, reliable, in the know. Well, look here, while we smoke our cigars, perhaps
There'll
we
be
might...
no cigars for either of you. Time we all retired. Mr. Parnell is here to rest.
Oh. Right then. Well, I'll just nip up and say goodnight to the children before I go.
Before you...
Come here, Dick.
Willie? Excuse me.
Of course.
Shall I clear now, Mom?
Yes.
My darling.
fine girl. What a marvel you are. I should scarcely have thought it possible, but you've done it. We've got him.
You cannot possibly go back to town. You gave me your word.
And in good faith, my love, but the notice was a trifle short. Unexpected business.
At this hour? With whom? One of your women?
Oh, for shame, Kate. I must meet the boat train from Paris.
As long as Mr. Parnell is here, so must you be. Would you prefer a scandal?
My love, I trust you. Caesar's wife.
There is hardly...
As for Parnell, poor fellow's as weak as a kitten. I warrant you'll get no trouble there.
Yes, Willie, that remark is worthy of you.
Then, thank you. Tell me, how did you get him here?
I went to his lodgings. Alone.
Did you, by Jove? Good gal. But look here. Now that you've hooked the fish, don't lose him. Use the gaff. Carry on the good work.
Is something wrong?
Mr. Parnell, what's a gap?
I have several fears. All of them absurd for a man of supposed intelligence.
One of them is to sleep in a confined place. I must have an open door. And I abhor the number 13. To see 3 candles burning in a room, and the color green. You know, the color of the benches in the House of Commons.
Green, are they?
And of the Irish flag. Whenever I speak publicly, the platform is draped with flags and shamrocks. And whenever I look out of my window at home in Avondale, I see fields. And in the summer, woods as well.
Are you unable to sleep?
I was waiting for you to come in. I lied about being afraid of confined spaces. The open door was an invitation.
The invitation is not accepted.
Stay with me.
You know I cannot. Good night. Take sugar?
1.
1. Am I to remember that?
I would advise it. It would save years of my having to remind you. Will O'Shea come this evening?
He comes at weekends and whenever he must. He prefers his life in town. Do you despise him on his own account or on mine?
He is self-seeking. He belongs to the highest bidder. He's exactly the sort of party member I don't want, as he is one of 2 MPs for County Clare. Abide him I must.
And you will help me. For as long as Willie thinks that I'm making use of you, we're safe.
So I must be used.
Of course. And your party, what will they say?
They will complain, but not to my face. Perhaps they will take you for a serpent in whose coils I am helpless.
You must be discreet.
For your sake, of course.
For your own.
My life. Your life and mine is our concern, no one else's.
You believe that?
My love. One day I shall have a government for Ireland in the palm of my hand. If I were to say to my people, destroy me, and you destroy that government, if I were to confront them with such an alternative, which do you think they would choose?
I think they'd choose to be Catholic.
Are you one?
Willie is a Catholic. Although you'd not think so on weekdays. But even he's an impressive sight on Sunday morning.
Then we must make sure to steer clear of Catholics and their Sunday clothes.
Good morning.
Our guest is leaving, Willie. He's come to say goodbye.
Say thank you, at any rate. Captain O'Shea and I shall meet on the morrow.
So we shall. Not saying how I shall vote, mind.
Indeed. Then we must talk first.
Well, frankly, I'm a government man. Always back the winner, that's what I say.
Is it? Thank you for your hospitality and your kindness. I'm in your debt.
Rot. Delighted to have you. Send you the bill tomorrow.
Unless you need the carriage, I'm taking Mr. Parnell to the railway station.
Now, do so. Do so. You can catch up with us on your way back. Splendid morning for a stroll, eh, children? Come on.
Until later, then.
Never see the back of him.
But you heard what he said. He's not saying how he will vote.
Well, it is so important.
I'm putting the motion that all Home Rule members will henceforward sit in opposition. And a dissenting member will render himself liable for expulsion.
The idiot. But why?
Perhaps he wants to find out how far I may be pushed. Well, this is the beginning of the price we pay.
Then it's too high. We must stop now.
No, I'll save his skin. You and I will go on. We have chosen our road. Or it has chosen us.
Fellow's riding for full.
Who is? What's he say?
Ignore him. He's a dull fella.
Oh, am I? Am I? Dull, am I? Well, I will not be rough. Ridden, rough, shot over.
Courting a word of advice I will give unto ye. Go down to Blantyre to the
Comes when he has a mind to, goes round by your leave. We're expected to dance attendance. Well,
but
some of us have appointments to keep.
Oh, yes. With the lady, is it?
Well, what if it is? Some of us are partial to more civilized.
Captain, oh, careful. I heard tell
what?
that there's a shadow behind you, and it's not your own. That you're being followed. Aren't wives fierce, suspicious creatures all the same? Could you be up to them?
Now, look here. Is this an example of what passes as wit across the Irish Sea? Because if it is, I don't find it. Hey, man!
Kate.
Charlie. Oh, what on earth have you...
It's my disguise. Don't you like it?
Oh, my darling, but you're magnificent being.
I am told I am quite unlike myself.
Oh, yes, the disguise. Well, my darling, you may be in need of one. Willie was here.
I know, I just caught
He
sight
came
of him.
without warning. I'm so afraid that you and he might meet each other.
The stuff of farce, I believe.
It was not so bad. He accused me of having him followed. He said he'd retaliate, that he would search the house and find evidence against me. Oh, my darling, I think he's done so.
He's done so? What do you mean?
He found your portmanteau upstairs. And he's taken it away with him as proof.
By Jove. The farce becomes riper. Tell me, does he keep clothes of his own here?
Well, yes.
Good of him to oblige. At least I shall not begin tomorrow without a change of linen.
Charles, he's found us out.
Nonsense. Now what about my beard? You see what sacrifices I make for you. Parliament doesn't open for another week. Meanwhile, this adoring, uncrowned king will take his queen away with him. We can have 5 days without the faintest risk of detection. My darling, we can go away to Brighton, Eastbourne, further afield, Paris, perhaps.
Charles, it's useless.
You make too much of it. Your husband was drunk.
Charles, I'm with child.
Sir, will you see the O'Gorman man?
Briefly, yes.
My respects, sir. My business is...
All the better, I'm sure, for being done in comfort. How do you do? Will you sit?
Thank you. I think not. I was about to say that my business is, by its nature, personal and private.
I wonder if there is a difference. Harrison.
Of course.
Sir, I am at your disposal.
The question is, sir, whether you are at Captain O'Shea's disposal.
Ah.
Captain O'Shea asked whether you would be kind enough to be in Lille or any other town in the north of France. It suits your convenience on Saturday next, the 16th.
France, you say?
You are aware, sir, that under the laws of England, affairs of honor cannot be settled as gentlemen would wish.
Matters of honor. Oh, you mean a duel? Yes, I had heard. Very well. By all means, done.
That is your reply? You accept?
Yes. The 16th. One moment, sir. Since you appear to be a friend of Captain O'Shea's bosom, would you be kind enough to ask him what the devil he has done with my luggage? I have searched half the cloakrooms in London, and not a trace of it.
I thought it was a bluff that he would show the white feather, but of course, why should he? Living on that estate of his has been used to handling guns since he left his mother's knee. Probably never misses. Damn fellow means to murder me.
Willie, have you forgotten you challenged him?
Yes, well, chap has his honor to think of.
Well, you never have sense. Don't you know that if you drag Parnell down, we go with him? Have you thought of Aunt Ben? We are her heirs. Do you want to see us disinherited because of some sordid scandal?
The man insults me in my home, in my own home.
Yes, because at your invitation he came down for the quiet he could not find in London. You told him our home was his. You were not there.
Because I was...
And I was the one left to make him seem welcome.
There was nothing improper between Catherine and Mr. Parnell.
Well, I don't know. Does Kate say so?
Yes, Kate says so. Now, you goose. Write and withdraw your silly challenge.
He is not to stay at Elton in my absence. Am I your promise?
Yes, Willie. You have it.
Very well. Too easy going, I know I am.
On the contrary, I think you've behaved very well indeed. Anna, would you mind travelling home alone this evening?
You are Michael Davitt? I am. Grand, you're under arrest. On what charge? Charge? Well, the new act doesn't bother us such about charge. New act? Wait, let me see now. What about behaviour not in accordance with the conditions of leave for a convict? Are you mad? No more talk. Oh, God, would you put handcuffs on a one-armed man? Give over. Come on with you. You spend tomorrow night back home in Dartmoor.
He said nothing, not a word, even to you.
My dear man, a secretary is not a wife.
You could have asked him.
Oh, to be sure. Excuse me, Mr. Parnell, sir, but where are you off to and for how long? I know the answer I'd get.
Well, he's picked the right time. With David arrested, could be our turn next, even his.
His? They wouldn't dare. He must be found. Isn't there a diary?
There is, and I keep it.
Letters, then?
Dealt with by me, except for those that are marked private.
When did that come?
This morning, by hand. If you
Could it, do you think, give us an address?
For God's sake, Tom.
What I'm saying is we could be under lock and key by nightfall, you included.
I'm not saying a word against the man, but God Almighty! He forbids us to act on our own initiative, and when we're most in need of him, he goes to earth.
I accept no responsibility.
It's a woman's handwriting. Would you say it's a woman's writing? I know what the chief would expect of us. He'd want us to use our initiative.
Well, now, there might not be an address in it.
And there might. If we don't find him, let it not be for want of trying. He'll understand.
Well, does it say where he is?
Mr. Parnell!
Sir, we were anxious about you. There's news from Dublin. David!
What is that?
Sir, it has been 2 days. We were at our wits' end. The letter was our last hope. We thought it might contain an address.
Get out of my sight.
It was with the best of all possible...
Do you hear me?
Sir, we were distracted with worry. We had no notion of where you were.
I take it you have business here.
Sir Davitt was arrested at 1 o'clock yesterday.
I read the papers, Dillon. Did you think the government suspended habeas corpus for purposes of amusement?
Then what are we to do?
You will go to Dublin, replace Davitt, restore confidence. Mr. Gladstone is painfully aware that our party will one day hold the balance of power. If he has sense, he'll not interfere with us.
And if he does? I mean, if you should be arrested, violence?
Perhaps, if that should happen, Captain Moonlight will take my place. We go to Wexford next week as arranged. Sexton, you will go with me.
You mean as well as Healy?
I mean instead of him.
What are you there? Healy! I thought he was about to strike you. What the devil was in that letter?
It was from one of his conquests. A girl in Holloway prison who had his bastard. Looking for money.
My husband, it is a short hour since you left my arms. For as long as you are away from me, know that for good or ill, I am now your wife, your lover, and the mother of your child. While you are in Ireland, write or wire me to say that you are well, and I will try not to be unhappy until you are with me again.
The Irishman who thinks he can now throw away his arms will find to his sorrow and destruction that he has placed himself in the power of the English enemy. William Gladstone, this masquerading knight-errant, is prepared to carry fire and sword into your homesteads unless you humbly abase yourselves before him. And the landlords of the nation.
Thank you. Mr. Parnell seems determined to force our hand. What are his present whereabouts?
My people report that he left Wexford after his address and is in Dublin.
Have the goodness to go there, obtain a warrant. Honourable colleagues are in agreement?
Prime Minister, is it to be one warrant for Parnell alone?
No. Let us rid ourselves of the limbs as well as the head.
Filthy night. Where's your mistress?
She's in the drawing room, sir.
Billy, what brings you here? Have I been having you followed again?
It's happened at last. I said it wouldn't, it has. He's got his comeuppance. Laid by the heels, by God.
You have to swear. What are you talking about?
Parnell! He was arrested in Dublin this morning. Sexton and Dillon and others along with them. They've been thrown into Kilmainham jail. What have you got to say to that?
I'm hardly surprised. I didn't think you could keep out of prison much longer, did you?
Kate, why are you trembling? You seem strange.
Not at all. I'm trembling because I'm so very glad to see you, Willie. I had intended to send you a note, but now you're here, you can hear it from my own lips. I have good news for you.
In the interest of historical accuracy, I think I ought to say that, in fact, in life, it took some time for the friendship to turn into adultery. But the requirements of a miniseries impose a maximum time limit on a couple going to bed. And in a 4-hour series covering 15 years, the maximum is minimal. Alistair Cook, Masterpiece Theatre, good night.